class of 2023. We ask that you please silence your cell phones before the event to honor today's speakers. Our first speaker today is Amber Musafich. Amber will be introduced by our coaches, Richie Sutton and Joey Chapman.
Hey, good morning. Coach Sutton and I are grateful for the opportunity to introduce Amber Mufasa. No? I can never get that right. I'll get it right eventually. I've had the pleasure of coaching Amber in basketball the last 3 years. Amber is a tremendous individual who embodies the student-athlete spirit here at Louisville Collegiate School. I consider Amber to be an ultimate competitor on and off the court. I've always been so impressed with the gold standard of excellence she displays in all facets of school and sports. I'd like to highlight just a few of her incredible accomplishments during her time at Collegiate. Governor Scholar Program, National Merit Commended Student, Student Body President, and my favorite accomplishment, helping the Amazon basketball team come back from a 10-point deficit to beat KCP at KCP. Amber, I'm going to need you to lead us to another KCP victory this season. Amber, I'm always extremely proud of you. Always remember, who you are today is just a piece of who you'll become, and I'll toss it over to Coach Sutton.
I'm Coach Sutton. I've coached Amber since the 6th grade. We've come a long way, me and Amber's relationship. At first, I'm not gonna say she hated me, but I wasn't her favorite person. And she felt that I felt the same way too, but it wasn't true. Once I got through the hardship of Amber, I found her very witty, determined, intelligent, sarcastic, and scheming. She knows what I mean about the last one. Young lady. We've had our ups and downs. She's had to do a lot of running. Some of you out there know exactly what I'm talking about when I say running. Through it all, Amber's character has never wavered. Her determination on the soccer field and basketball court has translated into her everyday life, which is going to make the sky the limit for her. Amber, it has been a true honor being your coach and in getting to know you over the past few years. I cannot wait to see the great impact you will have in the world.
Hello everyone. For those of you who went to collegiate and elementary school, you may remember the timelines we created in 5th grade in Miss Beck's history class. For my senior speech, I decided to look back and analyze the life I planned out for myself at the ripe age of 10 years old. To understand who I was in elementary school, let me enlighten you with some background information. During recess, I could be found on the field playing soccer, Masha and Madeline trailing me, searching for my Reebok's footprints in the grass. These tracks were nicknamed Ambers, and sometimes I would even drag Masha into playing with me, making people claim us as a package when picking teams. When Masha refused to play, I was left alone, and you could look out onto the field and see a group of boys playing soccer, and I completely blended in. I experienced a tragic haircut in 3rd grade where my long, gorgeous locks got chopped to just above my ear. To this day, Stuart still points out how ugly it was. I also was a revolutionary at this time because I despised the uniform dress we were required to wear. I hated the jumper, so I wore the polo with the khaki or navy shorts and pants, accessorized with a pink cheetah print belt. Additionally, I constantly wore a gnarly shark tooth necklace around my neck that I bought after a week at the zoo in 4th grade. I was attached to this necklace, and I was devastated when Henry came along and snatched it off my neck during a game of tag and completely obliterated it. I cried, and I swore I would hate Henry forever. This marked the start of my long-standing toxic love-hate relationship with Henry. I hope I've painted a good picture for the type of person I was in the 5th grade, and now we can dive into my timeline. I state that in 2023, I graduate from collegiate, attend Washington University in St. Louis for engineering, and go to France for vacation to study abroad. I'm in fact not applying to WashU, but I've been planning to be an engineer for a long time and have finally decided to major in aerospace engineering. Hopefully I will get to experience a study abroad program as well. France would be amazing, but I think little Amber didn't understand that study abroad is not in fact a vacation, but just school in another country. On my timeline, I discussed the fate of members of my family as well. I decided my sister would marry the benevolent and attractive star of Maze Runner, Dylan O'Brien. If my sister marries Dylan O'Brien, man, good for her. I will support her, of course, but internally I would be screaming in jealousy. I believe that after college graduation, I would invent the best car ever. It would be inexpensive for the buyer, and I would donate half the proceeds to Data Care. I would become a quadrillionaire at 24 because of this car. Frankly, I don't understand how I could have thought I would become a quadrillionaire if this amazing car I create is both cheap and I only receive half the money. Considering the price of production, I don't know how I would make any profit at all, but at least the hungry will be fed. Little Amber was truly a philanthropist. As for my love life, I projected that after I invented this car, I would marry a husband that likes soccer, and we would have our honeymoon in Greece. I liked that my only requirement for a man at the time was that he needed to like soccer. I wish I could say that I've gathered some more important standards, but frankly, I haven't. In all honesty, they have deteriorated, and I'm notorious for liking guys that play any sport as long as they have abs. After several years, my husband and I would have 2 kids, 1 boy and 1 girl. Their middle names were inspired by the greatest characters to ever exist in the series that laid the foundation of my childhood. My future daughter's middle name would be Annabeth, and my son's Percy. I was obsessed with the protagonist of the heart-wrenching and life-changing Percy Jackson series. At last, my true calling materialized on the timeline. I would run for president. I want to take some time right now to formally apologize. I stated in my timeline that in the year 2049, I would solve world hunger, make world peace, and become the first female president. By stating I would be the first female president, I jinxed the 2016 election. I single-handedly am to blame for the outcome of the Electoral College, all because of my own selfish desire to become the first female president. So now I'd like to say I'm truly sorry for the 4 years of continued patriarchy we had to experience. The next couple decades of my life, I recognize myself for discovering a planet, inventing a new ice cream flavor, and creating the most awesome playground ever, complete with a statue of myself. I continue to outdo myself by concocting a substance that makes you immortal. I end up dying 7 years later, but I achieved my goal of reaching the year 2100 and living a beautiful 95 years. You might be questioning how I die after I concoct an immortality substance. Only as a true Rick Riordan fan would. I turned down immortality because my idol Percy Jackson turned it down as well. I did give myself a hero's ending, dying while saving a 3-year-old from drowning. There are some flaws with this heroic act though. First, I'm rather afraid of swimming underwater. And second, I would be a 95-year-old woman, and I do not believe I would be even capable of throwing a ball. This timeline serves as a reminder of who I expected myself to be and who I wanted to be. I was exploring the many different paths I could take in life. Reviewing this timeline, I discovered that there are many things I no longer wish to accomplish, but there are also new things I wish to achieve. This timeline allowed me to express my creativity while showing my desire to do it all. I've changed my mind many times since I was a 5th grader, and that's completely normal. It's okay if you don't know what you want to major in college or what type of future you want for yourself. It is important to have goals, but do not have requirements that you do not truly want for yourself. Take your time to think about who you are and what you want from life. No one's life will turn out the way they planned in the 5th grade. Neither will it turn out the way that we planned this year. Our lives and minds are ever-changing, flexible entities. Our lives are meant to be lived, so enjoy the present and don't linger on your past or the future you think you're meant to have. Who knows, perhaps I'll end up falling in love with a guy with no abs. Thank you.
Our second speaker today is Polly Cunningham. Polly will be introduced by her advisor, Ms. Prince.
I am so honored to introduce the kind, creative, generous, and beautifully brave Mademoiselle Polly Cunningham. Before I can tell you more about Polly, I need to share the words that Polly's presence always bring to my mind. American poet Maya Angelou wrote that without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest unless we are courageous to be so. And if you know Polly Cunningham, you know she is one of the kindest, most generous, and honest people you've ever met. And therefore, she has to also be one of the most courageous people I've ever known. What does Polly's courage look like? It looks like her hopping on a plane to spend a year in France with a family she'd never met, teaching preschool in French to adoring children, and often caring for 4 children all on her own. As you might imagine, if you know Polly at all, she took on these adventures and challenges with a smile on her face and a quiet confidence in her heart that it would all be good. Polly's courage also looks like Polly coming back from that year in France to Louisville Collegiate. As you all in the front couple rows know, it can be intimidating to be a senior even when you're with the friends you've known since 9th grade. But Polly's courage led her to join a new class and a new advisory with a smile on her face and a confidence in her heart that it would all be good. And lastly, Polly's courage looks like her tuning in to every person around her. Not just the folks she's familiar with or her friends, but everyone. Do you ever have a day where you feel like no one sees you? Do you ever have that day when you feel like you're not enough? I hope you don't have those days, because I know how hard they are. But if you have one, please hang out with Polly Cunningham. When Polly asks you how you're doing, she truly listens to all that you say. You'll mention the smallest detail of something, and she'll remember it the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and check in on how you're doing and how that detail is developing. She'll ask, she'll listen, and if you're lucky, she'll share a bit of her own story in a way that will leave you with a lighter heart and with the knowledge that you've been seen. That kind of care to other humans is courageous. So what I'm grateful for today is that Polly's courage is infectious, and I know it will rub off on all of us. Without further ado, La Fille de Courage, Polly Cunningham.
For those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Polly Cunningham. You didn't see me around in 2021 because I spent all of last year studying in France. I consider this gap year to be a growth year. It was a great experience, even though I will be 20 when I graduate from collegiate. I did not want to be confronted with this fact. I consider it embarrassing to be this old in high school. Then a few months ago, my perspective changed, thanks to my mother. I remember her looking into my eyes and saying, "Polly, you are not redoing your senior year. You are expanding it." Still, I feel a little out of place. Everyone in my class graduated last year. And I find myself asking, why am I here? I just want to return to France where life is simple, except in some ways it wasn't. Last spring, near the end of my year abroad on March 30th, I had a crise d'épilepsie. The school year was almost ending, and maybe I was a bit stressed about returning to the States. I said bonne nuit to my host family and went to bed that night. At around midnight, I woke up feeling abnormal. I felt as though I was in a dream and not in touch with reality. It was truly the strangest, most out-of-body experience, and I can only attempt to describe it. I couldn't seem to find the door handle or navigate my way around the bedroom. This was frightening. Then I threw up. Gross, I know. When I came to, I realized that I had actually thrown up in my room and not in the toilet. I remember texting my mom all of what happened, and it is a good thing I did. This text ended up being medical evidence showing documentation of what occurred that night. When the sun rose, I had yet another unpleasant surprise. I discovered I had bitten the side of my tongue very hard. I went to Anne Florence, my French host mother. I said I was hungry for pain au chocolat and started to describe what had happened. I stated, "T'inquiète pas," meaning don't worry. She looked at me as if I were crazy, but as the mother of 5 daughters, she was practical and resourceful. She helped me schedule a medical rendezvous with a specialist. She and I suspected that I had a seizure in the night. I explained to Anne Florence and later to my French doctor that I had my first seizure 9 years ago in 2013. My first one happened in the Kroger grocery aisle. Despite having these seizures so far apart, it was important to faire confiance dans la médecine. It took 3 months to get to see the neurologist. I had an appointment with Dr. Bonifay in July of 2022, right before I traveled back to the States. I told him that it wasn't worth it to have this appointment, as I could just see my American doctor later. He reassured me that this was not the case. He claimed that taking anticonvulsant medications was once again necessary, as I could likely have another seizure within the following weeks. To further explain what was going on, he talked with me and then drew a diagram. It depicted 3 lines or thresholds, with 1 line moving across the paper. This curved line represented my neurons and their activity from an EEG. He demonstrated that my threshold for neurotic activity is lower compared to most individuals, and that any movement past this line is considered seizure activity within the brain. As he was sketching this diagram, he mumbled to himself. I was wondering what he was saying, as I was at the point in language fluency where I could understand every single word. He glanced up at me, when I had the impression he was skeptical that I could understand his remarks. However, I asked many questions to demonstrate I knew what we were talking about. I proceeded to ask, "Est-ce que vous direz que je suis handicapé?" Meaning, would you consider me to be handicapped, the French term to describe a disability. His face expressed that he wasn't exactly sure how to respond. It depends on the situation, he explained. Swimming in a pool is challenging for a person with a seizure condition because of the risk of drowning, but taking a shower is less challenging. Falling and injuring yourself is a concern, but perhaps less so than going unconscious in a pool. He further explained concepts of French law, that individuals with recent seizures cannot drive within the 6 months following. Luckily, I only ever took the bus as a means of transport. We discussed all of this. He ended up prescribing me Keppra, a common epileptic medication. Given the unique situation, I think he was a bit impressed, considering the fact that I was a young American patient and did not have a carte vitale. I was forced to explain my method of payment without French healthcare, yet I realized this was the least of my worries. I had organized this appointment with little guidance, found a solution to my payment problem, and was most of all proud of the fact that I was able to advocate for my health, doing all of this in another language. Answering my own question about whether epilepsy is a handicap, my response is no. Medically, epilepsy is defined as excessive and abnormal brain cell activity. There are about 200,000 US cases of it per year, and the disorder can be genetic, while some causes are unknown. Having a seizure disorder is not always pleasant, as it unexpectedly affects people in unpredictable ways. It can impel changes to a person's lifestyle. When I am tired, am I just plain tired, or is my fatigue signaling that I'm about to have a seizure? When I'm forgetful, am I about to slip into the seizure zone, to paraphrase Maverick in Top Gun, or am I just plain spaced out? I have made an effort to educate myself about seizure disorders, listen to my body, and pay attention to how I feel to suss out true seizure sensations. As you might expect from my living in France for a year, I achieved personal milestones in speaking French. At the beginning of my year in France, I found that I can understand others well, but cannot respond and engage in a timely manner. As the year continued, I got the hang of it, and I was happy. I loved eavesdropping on French gossip at the bus station or picking up host-family slang. It is true to say that one way you know you are fluent in a language is when you start to dream in that language. This happened to me. But another aspect of fluency is word utilization. When I am talking, I sometimes find French words for a conversation that are more suitable than an English word. Sometimes I stumble over my words because I cannot think of the English word quickly enough. It's like I can't dial in the right number or need to switch out a SIM card to get on the right network. So to conclude, yes, I am the girl who was a bit shy and quiet before she left to go to France for an extra year of high school. Though I have always had a sense of adventure and curiosity, learning a new language revealed a profound passion and brought out a social side of me. I enjoy sharing my experiences with others when they ask. I no longer feel self-conscious about being old for my grade or having 5 years of high school. I am also comfortable with being epileptic. I have changed many habits such as my sleep schedule to help keep me out of the seizure zone. My advice to the underclassmen and others in the audience is to find something which intrigues you, even if there is something that can affect your performance. I recommend travel and going abroad in particular when possible, and to find comfort in uncomfortable situations. Take advantage of the new opportunities and enjoy the present. Don't regret your decisions, even if they take you into unknown territory. I'm grateful for the support of our community, including the amazing Prince Advisory. I hope you all have gained a new insight and perspective from my remarks, and I thank you for your time and attention this morning.
Oh, let's give another round of applause.